Welcome and a warm hello from Circle of Security International. My name is Deidre Quinlan, and I'm part of the leadership team at Circle of Security. We're all thinking about you and wondering how it's going for you in this world turned upside down. Everyone's trying to hold so much, holding your profession, your communities, the well-being of your family and your homes, and also to take care of yourselves as well. I recently met with a couple of my friends and COSP colleagues who are partnering with us to bring Circle of Security parenting to folks all around the world. We got together to talk about Circle of Security parenting in the time of COVID-19.
I'm Deborah Harris, and I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm a trainer for Circle of Security International and a fidelity coach.
And I'm Mark Hald. I'm in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, which is western Nebraska. I'm a licensed psychologist and a fidelity coach for Circle of Security International.
The three of us are located all over the United States and met using a video conferencing platform.
So we thought before we would start with our discussion and content, we would just take a moment before we kind of go to that part of our brain. It's important to acknowledge the rest of our body. Just being aware of your body right now in this moment, and then taking several intentional breaths, inhaling and exhaling. On the inhale and intentionally exhale. If you're feeling particularly anxious or overworked, that really focusing on the inhale can help what you're taking in. If you're feeling kind of burned out or low energy, focusing on your exhale and releasing that. And when you're ready, we'll be here when you come back to the screen.
Thank you, Deb. Remembering to breathe is so helpful. We've been planning this talk for a few weeks now, but every time we think we have what we want to say lined up, then the world changes again. This cartoon from The New Yorker says it well. Are you talking about the new normal of an hour ago, or is there a new normal right now? So we thought we'd start today by talking a bit about how this global pandemic has changed the way we think about doing our work, about how we used to think about facilitating then and how we're thinking about it now. And we started to make a list, and the list just keeps growing. In fact, we created a chart. As we were creating this chart, in the middle of all this, Mark mentioned that we might want to start our talk about what we might all be feeling in this time of COVID. And he started to bring into our conversation thinking about grief.
I think the grieving come in because we were talking so much about loss for ourselves, loss for each other. We began by thinking about how everything's upside down. In terms of our rhythms of life, our normal coming and going, our interactions with colleagues, our interactions with our children, grandchildren, and the loss of what we know is gone. And we began to read some information about making sense of what's happening through the lens of just the grief process, with denial and anger and bargaining and sadness and getting to some level of acceptance. And where I live, schools were closed about 3 weeks ago. And it just really struck me and hit me how disconnected I felt all of a sudden. And I think as we've kind of processed this, we're very much aware in doing that with each other how this must be for you. And beginning to try and make sense of that, the sadness of when will this be over? I don't know when I can reconnect with people, or feeling those elements of of denial of, oh, this can't happen to me, it won't happen in my community, it's just in other parts of the world. Or lots of feelings of anger of, you can't make me do this, you can't tell me I can't go places, you can't tell me I can't hug people, or bargaining. Okay, so if I don't go anywhere for 2 weeks and I keep my distance and I wear a mask, then everything will be okay in a couple of weeks, right? Then finding some sense of acceptance of, okay, this is real. Now, what can I do about it? How can I find some sense of control by social distancing, by wearing a mask, by trying to figure out how to work remotely, making sense of the work that I do, and then supporting others who are trying to do the same kind of thing, and finding our way. In a couple of articles that we found really helpful, we'll post so they can be available to you. Finding new ways to connect in the same way that we know, because that's what grounds us and helps us find our way in the midst of chaos.
I want to say thank you, Mark, for your help in bringing us all to this place of starting to just recognize and lean into and have permission to think about grief. And in the telling of your journey, I can even hear in your voice how hard it's been for you. One of the lovely things that you did was that you had a conversation with 3 of your facilitators. Do you want to set that up for us?
So, as the 3 of us have been talking, we've been trying to figure out from those who were able to finish some circle groups, what kinds of challenges did they have? How did it go? And so I met with some facilitators from Nebraska, and I asked them, how were they all doing? What has this been like for them? And so here's 3 of their stories that we'd like to share with you.
It's so amazing how and in meetings for the most part, and my youngest is almost 5 and she's got, 4 big siblings here, but it is amazing how I'm like, oh, there's always examples of circle when you're home, because guaranteed at least once per meeting, she comes in, don't you? Can you say hi?
Hi. We met with all the home visitors. We probably had, Shannon, were you on that call? Maybe 50 home visitors on the call. And it was really just a little bit eye-opening how stressed out they were, and still thinking that the expectations were the same, and just their stress. And I was like, you know what? I think I had an anxiety attack in the middle of the night, subconsciously, because I woke up, but they closed my park. And it's got a great walking trail through it, and I would walk the dogs through the park. Well, you can't even walk in the park.
I think for me, the last 2 weeks, I had been really stressed out because all the changes and adjustments, and I have a high expectations, and I just had to remind myself that I need to stop and just do as much as I can with what I have, with the resources that I have right now. So I'm glad that yesterday during our home visitors Zoom meeting, I was really relieved after hearing Stephanie and Karen saying, relax, you do as much as you can. So that took a lot of me. And now I'm trying to homeschool my 8-year-old kid that school is not really his favorite thing to do. So that's a lot of stressful time for me too.
You want to share some of your thoughts about that?
Well, I was just thinking how, we're thinking about considerations for kind of then and now. And one of the things that's so apparent with the providers that are sharing what it's like for them to be in the same situation. This is kind of in some ways the great equalizer here, that we are all experience this. Nobody's immune from this. And so the holding that is holding the holding, I think about this multiplier effect, the ripple effect. And so you all that are facilitators or supervisors, administrators, these layers that make this, that really bring it home, because we're all coping with how to balance how we're being affected on all different levels, starting with our personal.
I was really struck by how the opportunity to just a simple invitation to talk a little bit about how they were really invited. I think a need for them to kind of express and share that out loud with others.
Right. It didn't take much prompting for them to all have a story to tell.
Yeah.
Just as you both commented, it's really changed the way we do our work, that we're working from home. Many are being called upon now to be the homeschooling parent now. There's no job, there's no childcare. Some people are unclear as to whether or not they're still going to be employed over the next few weeks. Some people have been laid off or on extended leaves. And there's this kind of shift in the way we come to understand what the new norm is in our life right now. And the new normal is discomfort, just lots of discomfort right now, and feeling dysregulated. Just doing things like going to the grocery store doesn't fill our cup in the same way that it used to. Physiologically, we would do these kinds of everyday activities and it would help us feel better and feel regulated. But this social distancing and not seeing our relationships in the same way means that we're not able to fill our cup in the same way that feels satisfying. You recently had a conversation with one of your facilitators, Deb, who talked about this very thing, about having an awareness of how this had shifted for her. We can share that.
Talking about feeling trapped. And, I go out daily. I've been just doing my walks and walking around the neighborhood, and it just hit me that maybe that's not an option, that they don't have that feeling of being able to go walk in their neighborhoods, and the feeling of being trapped. Maybe, I think it just hit me when they said that, it's like, yeah, you're getting outside on your deck and getting outside for moments, but that option may not be there for many. And I think when that dawned on me of how that would feel, feeling trapped and with young kids and trying to balance it all. And
one of the things that she said is that idea of it can't feel good to feel trapped. And I think that's another piece of that grieving process, and feeling the loss and getting stuck in that and not being able to find a way to acceptance in terms of making sense or making new meaning out of what I'm experiencing.
It's a helpful way to think about this next clip that we're going to look at. In this next clip, wanted to share is Bruce Perry, who has done some videos that he's made available, where he's actually talking about the changes that are happening in the brain in response to this time of COVID-19. We got permission from his team to share a brief clip of this, and we'll also have available for you a link to the website if you would like to, to the YouTube clip if you'd like to see the clip in its entirety.
Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Bruce Perry, and I'm here to spend some time with you talking about state-dependent functioning. A key thing about the current situation, and it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that we have these systems that can basically recruit and activate all of our body and brain and prepare us for threat. And so what happens, one of the first things that happens is that you become externally focused and vigilant, and maintaining vigilance for a long time actually is emotionally and physically draining. And activating, making your body sort of be ready for threat all the time for a long time, it exhausts your body too. And one of the key things that we're going to see in this current pandemic is emotional and physical exhaustion. People will not be able to do as much work during a given workday that they normally did. Students will not be able to learn as rapidly or as efficiently as they had in the past. And this is really an important thing to be aware of, and to be really gentle with yourself and with others. And I would recommend even proactively decreasing your own workload in anticipation of exhaustion, because it's a lot better to proactively and intentionally decrease what you have to do than to say you can do something and expect yourself to do it and fail and then beat yourself up and let other people down. So it's important that we are proactively anticipating less effectiveness.
We were just talking about this, about for ourselves, that feeling more tired, exhausted, needing more time to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that for most of us, sitting in the same position in front of the screen is not what we're used to doing, and just the fatigue that comes from that physically and kind of cognitively, I think, not even to mention emotional.
Another way that it's hard to fill our cup,
Mm-hmm.
when we're not in the presence of others.
Mm-hmm.
I get to 5 o'clock and I'm tired. I don't have any more energy to finish things, and I just want to sit. It's like my concentration switch is just turned off. Been sleeping really hard at night, although the first week I think I was really restless, and thinking about that overactivated fight or flight response has been really helpful.
I think the line that really resonates with me in that short clip from Dr. Perry is when he says to be gentle with ourselves and with others. And what we have learned from talking to facilitators, we have a couple of clips here, is the wisdom of actually using the Circle of Security to kind of slow down the process and understand where we're at and what we each need to show up and do the best we can. So I want to share a clip with this is actually a coordinator of a Head Start program in Georgia, and she's talking about how she's been using the Circle Security framework to help her respond to the needs of the facilitators and of her staff.
The way that we can be a safe haven, and that we can be with our staff as they are dealing with something that no one else has ever dealt with. And they're going to go out. Some of them are going to go out on the circle on the top, and they're going to stay out. And we need to have some structure so that they can come back in and get support, and to take the role of being the hands when they come back in on the bottom, and recognize that in this situation, there really isn't a right or wrong answer right now. We're all figuring it out. But when they come back in, that we need to delight in what they've done. We need to comfort them through their grief of what they're going through. And then, get them to a place where they are able to go back out.
It's just such a lovely description of using what we know in terms of being hands, being with, being bigger, stronger, wiser, kind, not forcing the issue, but using the map to have some lenses to understand a bit of the emotional turmoil that people are experiencing around all of the things that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that we all have that need, administrators, providers, trainers, this what we generally get a lot of the time. And now we're having to work harder to both provide that, to acknowledge it, provide it, receive it.
There's another administrator. He's the in charge of the home visiting, early Head Start home visitors, talking about how he's using Circle to provide support to his staff.
What I want them is to get that feeling of how, you know, of validation of how important they are. Also, you know, how much they can be that big support that those families can have, you know. And so that's in the part of releasing, right? But at the same time, in the part of letting them go, right? But also I want to be those hands to accept them again when they are telling me that their privacy is being cut off, you know. Or like they have their own kids tapping on their backs, you know, to asking for opening a yogurt while they are trying to have a conversation or to have one of these meetings, right? And they are feeling like this, you know, this feeling of, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. And you know, I'm glad to be able to be there to say, well, it's okay, you know. All of us are here for learning, you know, how we're gonna tackle, you know, the inconveniences of this new way.
I just love how he says it's okay. You know, what a great example of being the hands for and the co-regulator for his staff that are having to try something very, very different, very new with their own discomfort, challenges, and hardships.
Yeah, I love that idea of the inconvenience of this new way, that, you know, we're back to that. Everything's upside down again.
Mm-hmm.
All of us.
Mm-hmm.
We have a nice example too of another clip of, in the same way that the supervisor is offering the necessary being with to his team. We have a clip of a facilitator in Ireland, and she's talking about how she is finishing up a group now, and had the shelter in place, had to stay home, and so they weren't able to do the last couple of sessions. So she's been calling and checking in with folks, and she's sharing about her pull to want to teach and her wisdom that she's recognizing that there's a response that's needed that will be helpful for this parent in this time. So we'll just hear her share her story.
So one parent in particular, she's having a really hard time, and she was talking about not being able to access services, mental health services she needs for a young child. And I remember in the middle of it, because I have a relationship with her and I know where she struggles on the circle and I have a sense of what her child might need from her sometimes, I really felt this pull to bring the circle of security into it. But I just held it and I didn't. And I was kind of going, what am I doing here? And at the end of the phone conversation, she just said, thank you so much. That was really helpful. I was thinking, okay, I know what I did there. I was just being with her, but it kind of felt like I wasn't doing anything. And you'd think I'd know that's what I'm supposed to be doing, but you kind of forget it sometimes.
You did what you wanted. You did bring the circle of security into her, right?
I did, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I always think that's interesting to think that sometimes when we do less, we're doing more.
We get pulled to do, you know, so easily. I have to fix it. I have to take away the pain, when really it's just being with them, and remembering to just slow down and hang in there.
Yeah. I thought that Deb did some artwork on one of our images that I think is a really great example, right? That caregivers need you more than ever.
This is what happens when you have too much time on your hands, because you think you're, you know, have new creative talents that need to be expressed.
So we wanted to spend the last few minutes together thinking about remembering what we know.
Those of you that are watching this have been our facilitators, maybe at different sort of levels of experience. Some of you might have just finished a training and we're hoping to start. Some of you have been doing this for a while in various parts of the world, and this has caught you in various stages of a group or the chapters. And we just want to remind us that we can remember what we do know and the resources that you have, both on the website, in your manual, on the DVD, the Fidelity Journal, which we really want to emphasize is so important to helping you with your own process, the Caregiver Handbook, what supports you have, and our overall goals to enhance secure relationships by building reflective capacity. So how do we think in these times about continuing to support our own reflective capacities individually and in connection?
I was just reflecting again back to making meaning, creating new meaning, which is a big part of why we wanted to just kind of have a conversation like this. But it's hard and we'll struggle, but keep trying. And to organize others' feelings, I have to organize mine. I have to name it to tame it. Remember that what's shareable is bearable. And that when we can just be in that way, like that facilitator so beautifully experienced herself, really nice things can happen for them and for us.
The three of us plan to meet again for another videotape conversation about what we're learning from facilitators around the world. We'll be returning to our chart, focusing on facilitating COSP before COVID-19 and after. I'd like to end with this thought. Many of us, when first introduced to Circle of Security, found new understanding of the importance of relationship in our lives. We've found that when stress threatens or confusion sets in, we can pull out a mental circle roadmap and find our way back to security. We're committed to not believing our shark music, that repair is possible, that we can trust in our capacity to meet different circumstances with grit and grace, and ask for and provide the support as needed. Together, we'll get through this difficult time. Thank you for all that you're doing on behalf of children and families, and I wish you well.